Hello, everyone, and inside today's episode of Locked On Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens might be a very bad hockey team. We're going to discuss a 4-0 loss to the Seattle Kraken. We're going to talk about promoting Juraj Slafkovsky finally to the Canadiens' top line and whether or not Montreal should be looking at retaining salary going into trades at the deadline and beyond. All that and more inside today's show.
Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 761 of Locked On Canadiens. As always, we are your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast. You can find us wherever you get your daily shows in your podcatchers and beyond. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for subscribing. Please make sure you ring the bell to get notified every single time we post a new episode. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matla, and if you cannot tell by listening or by seeing, I am a little under the weather, but I refuse to go on IR because I am stupid and don't like to take care of myself when I need to. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host, the Active Stick, Laura Saba. And Laura, it's Monday night. We once again started recording this before the Canadiens game was over, which kind of gives us some insight into how the game went tonight at the Bell Center.
I got caught napping there when you came out of the intro. I'm doing well. Scott is feeling a little bit under the weather, but he insisted on this is like when you know hockey players get a punctured lung in the playoffs. Like this is exactly what Scott
I
is
am
doing
the
right
exact same as Patrice Bergeron winning a Stanley Cup, everyone. Laura said it, and now it is true. I am tougher than other people. I am actually a giant baby when I am sick. So I'm gonna take this as a compliment right now.
So here's the thing about that Canadiens game. That first period was pretty abysmal. However, the Canadiens recovered, particularly in the underlying metrics in the next two periods. They just unfortunately were not able to score. And also the shot attempts were they improved as the game went on. And there were a lot more shot attempts than actual shots, which tells me a couple of things. Like one, Dave Hackstall team blocking shots. Two, the Canadiens need a little bit more creativity. And three, why aren't the Canadiens blocking shots of their own? You know, if this defense isn't going to be good and transitional, then they should do some shot blocking and lying on their stomachs and David Savarding. So that was a couple of things. Josh Anderson obviously did not have a great game. We're going to talk a little bit also about Jake Allen obviously not being there. And the goaltending on this team is suffering a little bit. It's not world-beating goaltending by any means, but I think both goalies have regressed. And like Samuel Montembeault, bless him, like even tonight he had couple highlight reel saves, right? Like he's doing his best, but the Canadiens as a whole, they cannot allow themselves to get into a 3-0 hole so early in the game. And it was bad. Like it was like I was in the middle of texting Scott a complaint about the second goal, which again, admittedly I was a little bit behind. And then it was like they scored again, you know? So I think the Canadiens, they really need to not do this. This is not the first time we've had this conversation. This is absolutely not the first time that they have allowed so many goals so early in the game and then not been able to recover. And this is like not the first time that, like, even though they played better in the second two periods, they might have even won the game if they hadn't allowed themselves to go down early. So this is something that they're going to have to deal with. They're going to have to work on. You know, for so many years, we kept talking about the second period and how it was so bad. The Canadian second period was abysmal. And then, you know, last year there was a lot of all the periods were bad. And now it's like, well, you put yourself in a hole. Like, why are you giving yourself additional effort you're going to have to exert? And I realize that I'm ranting really, really fast right now. I'm trying to prevent Scott from having to talk. So I am, in this case, I am truly, admittedly silencing my co-host, as I often get accused of doing because I said one too many sentences too long. But I think, you know, I would have been okay with the Canadiens' effort if the first period wasn't so putrid.
And that's the thing is, like, Samuel Montembeault tonight, I know he let in 3 goals, but he's the only reason this was probably not a 7 or 8 goal game. That first period was terrible, and it set the tone for the rest of the game because the Canadiens are playing from behind. And yes, they picked up the shot attempts in the next 2 periods. They broke even in that at 5-on-5. They had far less shots on net, though, is the thing. You can attempt as many things as you want. You have to eventually get them to the net. And that's the issue, is a lot of them came from range and not in areas you want them to get to. They won the high danger battle at the end of the night, which is good. We want them to get to these opportunities. They won the expected goals battle at 5-on-5. But the finish and the little things aren't there for this team. And I think part of it is it's a discipline thing. They put themselves in the box, didn't give themselves good opportunities there. And, of course, the power play still sucks, abysmally so. And power play didn't make or break the game tonight, but it would sure be nice to, like, maybe have a chance. They got a power play and got one opportunity out of it, and it's just not – the effort isn't where it needs to be. Like, we're going to talk about Juraj Slafkovsky in the next segment, but, like, outside of Jake Evans, no one really seemed to give a crap tonight. And I look at, the third line. We talked about getting the fourth line and getting Mike Hoffman back into the lineup. At the bottom of the possession numbers is Michael Pezzetta, Jonathan Drouin, and Mike Hoffman. And at this point, I get that why they're keeping Michael Pezzetta around. It doesn't work. It's that whatever trio they get there doesn't work. And yeah, they're missing Sean Monahan to kind of, balance out the forward lines here. But as we talk about in the next segment, you got to let guys start finding their legs in the water here, or you just figure out maybe this isn't for them. And the possession numbers don't look as bad as I was anticipating. Evgeny Dodonov's up there. There's a lot of positives, but overall, this is just a game that the Canadiens did not play well in. Martin Jones didn't really have all that busy of a night. In all situations, he faced 21 total shots. The Canadiens gave up that many, I'm pretty sure, in the first period. Like, that's unacceptable. If we include all situations, the Kraken had 5 expected goals tonight, and the Canadiens had 2.69. Canadiens won the game, played better at 5-on-5, got absolutely smoked everywhere else. And we knew special teams were an issue. It's another game you got to crumple up. You got to throw in the trash, because now they've got an emotional one coming up on, Thursday night, when the Nashville Predators come to town. It is PK Subban night at the Bell Center.
Exactly. And so that's the thing is, like, I think and those games are the ones where, like, you find that the game ended at 4-0. The Kraken won at 4-0. So, it's one of those things where, like, they have to get it up for a game like that, because night in and night out, we see at the Bell Center, whenever there's something going on before the game, like, the emotional repercussions of that usually means a slow start for the Habs. It's not usually a good sign. So I think it's really, really important that the Canadiens start showing up to games in the first minute, not in the second period.
There's also my French is very terrible and I am sick, so I'm going to do my best to read this tweet from Marc-André Perrault from TVA. Gallagher porte une botte protectrice au pied droit. So I want to say that's right foot.
Yes.
So he's got a protective boot on his right foot.
Yes.
Not great at all. But once we get a more official update on that, we will obviously have more to talk about on that. But we do have something to talk about in our next segment, and that is Juraj Slafkovsky, one of the bright spots after a real rough stretch. And we're going to talk a little bit about maybe promoting him up here and why it's time to pull the trigger on that coming up next. But first, today's show is brought to you by the folks at BetOnline. They are your number one source for all your sports betting info, news, stats, analysis, everything you need. You need new lines, you need new props, parlays, everything. BetOnline has you covered. Obviously, the NFL playoffs kick off this weekend. Hockey is in full swing. Basketball, NCAA, and NBA is in full swing. Everything you're looking for, even MMA, boxing, and golf. And we know you like sports podcasts because you are listening to Laura and myself here at Locked On Canadiens. They have podcasts for you as well. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more. And remember, Bet Online, it's where the game starts. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and before we dive into our next segment, please make sure you subscribe to Locked On NHL Prospects, where if you want more prospect info about the upcoming draft, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. Hedy Kalakesh does a great job. You're going to want to make sure that you are up to date on everything that they are covering for this. That game was bad. We are in agreement that that game against the Seattle Kraken was not good. Whatever the opposite of good is besides bad is what that game was. when that first period was spiraling down the toilet of reverse retro night in Montreal again, there is one person I noticed standing out, seemingly trying riskier plays and making things happen, and that's Juraj Slafkovsky. He got more ice time tonight at 5-on-5, which is good. They increased that as they should have. My argument now is this, is that now is the time to pull the trigger and put Slafkovsky on that top line. We know Kirby Dach, Nick Suzuki, and Cole Caulfield works, but we know the way the lineup is set right now, Jonathan Drouin at center in any line is not working. If you bump Kirby Dach into that second line role and you find some combination to work there, maybe you put Dach and Slafkovsky together. I don't know. And you move Hoffman up. You got to try something, because we're at the point of the Canadian season. Their odds for Bedard, I think, are in the top 5 now. I think they have an 8.5% chance with their own pick, not Florida's. Now is the time to start seeing, okay, it's not make or break, but do you have the legs for this? Can we put you here and see positive aspects coming? And what do you have to lose at this point? Is him playing mid-tier minutes opposite Josh Anderson better than, hey, can our first overall pick maybe bring some of that creativity and size to that top line and create opportunities? I'd argue that the time is now to give that a shot. And also let Kirby Dach go through the center roles again. Because here's the thing is, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Okay, fine. They're drafting another center in the top 5 this year anyways. It's a lot. It's time for a lot of sinking or swimming and kind of pulling the training wheels off of this. I'm not saying throw Slafkovsky in heavy defensive minutes and making sure he's on every penalty kill and playing.
Oh, wait, why not?
Because the penalty kill's bad enough, and I don't want to do that to the poor kid right now. Josh Anderson's killing penalties. Anyways, let's see what we can do here. The worst thing that can happen is, it doesn't work right now. Okay, cool. If you don't try it, you can't know. You got to take off the kid training wheels at some point and give him an opportunity.
Right. So here's where I stand on this, is that the Canadiens as a whole aren't a good team. So whatever production Slafkovsky provides, they're going to make up for it in goals allowed. So I think they're going to be fine in terms of the tank. Here's my other thing with Slafkovsky is that if they put him on a line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, it's not the same scenario as they do when they have Dach up there or when they have Josh Anderson up there, because the focus is always on trying to contain Nick Suzuki's genius and Cole Caulfield's speed, right? So you put in somebody like Slafkovsky there, and all of a sudden you're defending against 3 players. You're defending so Kirby Dach is creating space for the other 2, but the other 2 are very heavily defended against. So I think you kind of force the opponent to work a little harder, and you end up inevitably, if you free up Nick Suzuki just a little bit more and you free up Cole Caulfield just a little bit more, just imagine just how much more productive they can be together. And I think that's 1. And 2, Slafkovsky himself, right? So we've asked this question a lot. It's like, if you want to develop this player for the long term, why are you holding him back? The holding him back feels artificial. It feels like player needs to pay his dues, as opposed to we're teaching this player what to do, right? This is where, and again, I don't know about the off ice, what the development with the skills coach and everything like that. I don't know how that's going. I'm not there. I'm assuming the Canadiens are focusing a lot on that, but not playing him in heavier minutes right now, whether or not you have anything to lose. What is the point of putting him on a line that he doesn't belong on, with line mates that he doesn't belong on, with assignments that aren't going to be his in the long term? He's never, let's say he works out to half as good as the projection is, right? He's still never going to be playing in the bottom 6. It's not going to happen. So why do they do this? So for me, I understand the old school mentality where a young player, a rookie, particularly one as confident and cocky and, dynamic and big personality as that, they would make sure they paid their dues. They earned their spot. But for me, like, he's not making any more mistakes than any other rookies. He's not making any more mistakes than any other player on the Montreal Canadiens. You know, like, not everybody can be as cerebral and smart like Nick Suzuki or Kirby Dach. Like, he's not egregiously making all these mistakes, and yet he gets benched for them. Like, Joel Edmondson is making more mistakes than Slafkovsky. So for me, like, all of these arguments, like the old school arguments were like, you know, he needs to be benched when he makes a mistake. You staple him to the bench in the third period, or like when you're defending a lead or whatever. All of those arguments, I mean, that's fine and that's all well and good. But I thought that Martin St. Louis is a new type of coach. I thought that the Canadiens were a new type of hockey team. I thought they were forward thinking. I thought they were bold. And so for me, it's just like, whatever happens, right? Like, it's just going to take him longer to develop, right? And for me, it's like, why not? Like, give him a chance to see how much he has to work. Like, if you're not putting him on the top lines now, and yeah, sometimes they do put him on the second line sometimes, but like, I'm sick of seeing him in the bottom six. I'm sick of not seeing him on the power play, or like you see him there for like 2 seconds and then they pull him off. I'm sick of all of that. Like, give him those situations, put him in those situations where they are high pressure, high risk, high reward situations, because at some point in the near future, not too long from now, that's going to be his assignment. So let him make the mistakes now and just throw him out there. I don't understand why they also, like, they don't do this with all the players. Like, Martin St. Louis gives all the people chances, but for whatever reason, we're keeping Juraj Slafkovsky preciously on the bench. Like, it bothers me, because he could be learning so much more. What if he's absolutely terrible at so many things and he needs to work on them in the next 2 years? Like, we don't know that. We can't see it. Like, we're not seeing it against NHLers. He's played against men, and we talk about those tournaments, those big game moments and all of that. But let's be honest, in the NHL, the caliber of competition that he's going to be playing against is much better than anyone he's played against so far. So, like, again, I'm ranting now. I'm loud. I didn't allow Scott to get a word in edgewise. So I think we can, like, unless Scott has any other thoughts, I think we can go to the next section.
My thought is that I think they're trying to, you know, protect him from getting just absolutely lambasted out there, which is fair. You want to bring them along on a steady pace, but you have to eventually give them the responsibility to do so. And like we said, we're not asking him to be the lead penalty killer. We're not asking him to get first line power play minutes all the time. Just give him more of these opportunities. He's played a lot more tonight. His second most ice time on the year. Good. They saw the opportunity and they took it. Do that more often. You're going to lose a lot more games here. And I do trust that they have a plan in place here, because this is not the old Canadiens. This is the new one. But I want to see kind of what those next steps are. I'm not asking for it all of a sudden to Juraj Slafkovsky to turn into a 20-goal guy. Give me that reason to believe that you are going to do what is best for this player here. And yeah, take it slow. That's fine. Because I assume after the deadline, he's going to be one of the big guys playing there. And speaking of the trade deadline, we've been asked a lot about whether or not the Canadiens should be retaining salary on trades or deals or anything else. We're going to dive into cap friendly and the Canadiens cap situation and why that might not be a great idea, all coming up next. But first, our next partner is a product that we use all the time here at Locked On Canadiens, and that's Athletic Greens. And if you don't know what Athletic Greens is, with one delicious scoop of it, you're going to get 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. It is the best way you can start your morning. It's lifestyle friendly, so if you are vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, or whatever, Athletic Greens is not going to interfere with that. And it's here to help boost your gut health and give you that energy you need throughout the day. It's got over 7,000 five-star reviews. It's recommended by professional athletes and leading health experts. It's got a climate neutral certification, so it's good for the environment. And I got to tell you, it's the best way to start your day if you are like me and you don't always have your regular breakfast or anything else. So we are telling you here at Locked On Canadiens, it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition with Athletic Greens. Just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it even easier, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D, great for those winter months when there's not as much sun, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, we are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we get asked a lot, should the Canadiens retain salary? We've discussed it before in some of these trades. Should the Montreal Canadiens be retaining salary to move out some of these contracts? And as of this year, right now, that answer is no. The Canadiens are heavy into LTIR. They have less than $1 million in cap space right now. They need to get people off this roster because Carey Price is the big reason why they are able to use LTIR effectively. And retaining salary kind of hampers them because luckily on some of these, guys like Jonathan Drouin and Evgeny Dadonov up after the season, Sean Monahan up after the season. But the bigger names that they're looking at trading, a Yoel Armia, a Josh Anderson, a Joel Edmondson, or David Savard, if you're retaining for several years after the fact, that's still going to hamper your team there. Because this offseason has one big name on their restricted free agent list, and that's Cole Caulfield. And Cole Caulfield, make no mistake about it, is going to get paid. And you want to have as much cap flexibility to get him signed, get some of your other lower restricted free agents signed, and then maybe try to add to this team. And that's not counting bonuses or anything else in there right now. Retaining on things, unless you are 100% sure you're going to be moving these things out, what if they want to buy someone out, etc., you got to make sure that you're not putting your future cap in issues here when you need to re-sign parts of this young core again or 2 new contracts after their current ones are over with.
So this is a question, so we wanted to talk about this topic because inevitably in any mailbag that we get, whatever guests we get, it's always something like, should the Canadiens retain salary in order to trade this or that player? Retaining salary to me is unless you're literally getting it's literally the difference between if you retain $500,000 for this guy, I'll give you a pick in the first round as opposed to a pick in the second round. Unless you're literally getting more asset back for it. But if you're trying to just move people off your roster, it's not necessary to retain salary. The reason that I say this is because if you want to be a team, then this is what we keep saying as Habs fans. We keep talking about, we don't want this to be a one and done kind of team. We want it to be a perennial contender. We don't want to sniff the conference final or the Stanley Cup final every 6 years and then not see and then have 4 years without making the playoffs after that. We want to see our team always be good and always give us hope, right? We want to see our team look like Colorado. We want to see our team look like Tampa Bay. We want to see our team look like the Blackhawks or the Los Angeles Kings, a pox on both their houses from a few years ago. We want to see perennial contenders. So if we want to do that, we cannot do the Toronto Maple Leafs thing where you're right up against the cap and then you sacrifice a bunch of good defensemen in order to be able to keep your offensive superstars. I want superstars on this team. Those superstars are going to come with price tags. We're talking about, Cole Caulfield, how he's going to get paid. And then, and this is a spoiler alert for the episode that we have with Sebastian Hyde that's coming up. We talk about how Nick Suzuki, the Canadiens can get a better center than Nick Suzuki and then have that 1A, 1B punch. That center, if they're going to be playing the 1A minutes, they're going to be paid at least as much as, and possibly more, depending on the assignments, than Nick Suzuki does, right? And you're talking about, you want a perennial contender. You need superstars on a contender. You need, your bottom 6 has to be a top bottom 6, and your top 6 is going to get paid. That's the thing. Right now, the Canadiens got really lucky with Kirby Dach's contract, right? If they want to be a good team for 5 or 6 years, by the time his next negotiation comes up, he is right now earning a much more expensive contract. So even if you retain $500,000, even if you retain $1 million, even if you and how are you going to unload Brendan Gallagher without retaining at least 2.5? That's not going to happen. So for me, cap space, cap flexibility is so important, because otherwise you're going to end up in a situation like the Toronto Maple Leafs where, again, why do they keep failing? It's often defense and goaltending. You can't do that. And again, we haven't really talked about this that much, but Angela Price tweeted that they're moving back to Kelowna this summer. Not tweeted. She put it on her Instagram story, right?
Yeah, in her stories there, yeah.
Yeah. So it's in her stories, right? So there's not been anything official, but what if that means that Carey Price is officially retiring, right? that LTIR space goes away, right? It doesn't help them anymore, right? So you really you need to make sure that you put yourself in as much of a position as you can. Like if it's a difference between getting a star player in return and a scrub, yeah, retain 500,000, retain $1 million, but you're not getting a star. Like in a situation that you're trying to move somebody that makes too much money off of your cap, you're not getting a star in return. The best you're hoping for is picks and potentially prospects. You know, just like we saw last year. Like I think the Canadiens did a great job trading last year, but at the same time, they didn't get any superstars in return. That's not what happened. So like you got to be smart with the retaining salary. And again, I sound like I'm angry about it, but I'm not. I'm very passionate about not retaining salary. It's one of my passions in life, just like graphic design. But I think, you know, I love the question because I do think that it's worth exploring as an idea. Like in order to trade this guy, should the Canadiens retain salary? But I always firmly believe the answer is no. Do not retain salary for anybody who's not coming off the books the immediate offseason after the trade.
And I look at this, the only people that, unless you're getting like an incredible deal for like a Josh Anderson, I don't see the value in retaining salary right now because they need to clear space. And like we said, if Carey Price retires, that LTIR is gone. Yeah, his cap hits off the books, but the LTIR is no longer there. And unless you're going to stick Brendan Gallagher there, which I don't think they will, it's complicated. Is that they have a juggling act to clean up what's left of the Bergevin regime. And then they got to get guys under contract going forward because eventually you want to contend. And to contend, you got to pay other pieces to be on your team here. Yeah, it'd be great if we had a team entirely of all drafted pieces. I also live in a reality where I know that is not always going to be possible. So you want to save that. I don't want to do what Mark Bergevin did for a while, where he sits on like $6 million in cap space and does nothing with it. But you have to allow yourself some flexibility that if that opportunity comes up, you can go, okay, this is mine now, and open up that space there. So the deal has to be too good to pass up for the Canadiens to retain salary. And right now, we don't know what's been offered. We don't know what's out there. We don't quite know yet, but the trade deadline is barreling forward towards us. It's about a month and a half away at this point. And obviously, as things come up and things go, we will keep you in the loop on everything there. And as always, thank you for tuning in. You can follow us on Twitter at @LO_Canadiens, wherever you get your podcast, or on YouTube at Locked On Canadiens. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. You can follow myself at Scott Matla. Coming up on our Wednesday and Thursday episodes, we have a 2-part series with Sebastian High. We're talking Nick Suzuki. We're talking the Canadiens' defensive depth. We're talking the World Junior standouts. We're talking draft prospects. Everything Canadiens fans need to know about this upcoming offseason and the draft will be in those 2 episodes. So please, please, please make sure you are locked in and subscribe to us on YouTube. Ring the bell so you get notified right when those suckers go live at midnight so you can watch right there. And as always, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.